Welcome to Driven Ops Power Talk. I'm Jasmine Moore.
And I'm Rebecca Heisey. We're two work besties who have spent over a decade learning the ins and outs of sales and marketing.
On this podcast, we discuss all things go-to-market operations, the people, processes, and technologies that make up the engine of a thriving go-to-market function. Let's get to it. Okay, we are coming with part 2 of corporate scandals. If you don't remember, we covered the initial allegations of the Rippling and Deel case.
Yep.
And now Becca is recording live part 2.
Yes.
There have been some new developments. I can't wait. I haven't heard of anything, and I haven't seen them online either.
I'm really, truly shocked that people are not talking about this, especially since this affidavit is public. It's wild. And I really hope that if you are starting here, you go back to the first episode because it really kind of sets the scene. But now we're going to hear some really, really crazy details.
Okay, so tell the people a brief recap.
Yeah, so basically Rippling is suing Deels. They are a competitor in the HR SaaS space, and they're suing them because they said that they had a spy. So Deel planted a spy in Rippling. Now, before these were all allegations, but now we actually know who this spy is. But just to, again, give you some background on what was happening here, they implemented corporate espionage, and this was stemming from like stealing trade secrets and just, any kind of information that the spy could gather from Rippling's systems. That's what his job was, basically.
Spy is such a crazy label to use today. I know. There was an actual spy.
Yeah.
I
know.
Crazy.
It's like something you just basically think is in the movies, not in real life. But this is a true and wild case.
Happening in tech.
Yep. Happening in tech. So I'll give you some background again, just sort of set the scene here. So now we have this lawsuit, and it spans about 50 pages. So it's a pretty extensive lawsuit, and the charges are very serious. They're saying that there was racketeering and a breach of fiduciary duty. So basically, Deel was responsible for being ethical in its space, right? Like they know that they're competitors, but you have to be fair. And basically Deel was not being fair. Deel was denying all of these allegations and said that this was just like a ploy because they said Rippling had another lawsuit that was stemming from their own mistakes on having sanction violations in Russia. So that's where they were trying to kind of push the story and saying, oh, this is all fake. They're just trying to say we're doing something we're not.
And the CEO released all of this information?
The CEO of Rippling So basically, like, this spy finally agreed to come out and say his side of the story. And so the CEO at Rippling posted it and blasted it basically on X and called out Deel CEO. I mean, that's how crazy the drama is getting here.
Oh my goodness, the block is hot.
Yes, it is. And then just to also recap, so all of this stemmed from these initial Slack messages. So Rippling kind of was doing some auditing of their Slack. They were looking at what people were searching for, and that's kind of how they were able to find out that somebody was doing some shady things. And so they created this honeypot scheme, which basically was like a ploy to try to catch the person in the act. And it worked, and that's basically where we kind of landed. But again, when we initially reported on this, it was just all allegation. We were like, we don't really know if this is true or not true or what's going on. But this affidavit says straight from the horse's mouth, essentially, this spy came out, and I will lay it all out there.
Oh, okay. All right. Let's break it down.
All right. So we now know that DS, or Deel Spy, is Keith O'Brien. Okay. And again, just to reiterate this was a subsidiary in Ireland for Rippling. So he was an employee of Rippling, and it's all based in Ireland. So we're overseas. And so you'll hear some of these details talk about euros instead of US dollars and things like that.
And all these are still alleged, right? No one's been convicted?
Yeah, no one has been convicted. Okay. Exactly. So these are still just allegations, but this is the story that this spy gave in his affidavit. So this is coming from the actual person who was involved.
Just allegedly.
Allegedly, yeah. we don't know. Like, they're still going to have to go to court, I think, but I don't have that much detail yet. We're only at the point of the affidavit.
This is like true crime corporate edition.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's crazy. Okay, so now this starts from the top, basically. So Keith O'Brien started working at Ripley back in July of 2023. Okay. And he was working in the payroll and compliance section of their company, which is pretty ironic because it's like compliance. But yeah. So he actually wanted to try to find a new job. So he applied for a job at Deel in March of 2024. And while he was interviewing, I guess he somehow became connected on LinkedIn with the CEO at Deel. And then, so he's going through the interview process and ultimately doesn't get the job. So he actually decided to reach out to the CEO just to say like, oh, you know, can you give me some feedback basically? And it was just all pretty casual. The CEO's name is Alec Bouaziz, I believe. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. It's a little different spelling, but so Bouaziz and O'Brien get connected. He tells him it was just like his presentation. He didn't really, just didn't nail it basically. So they kind of just go about their ways and that was fine. So then around August and September of 2024, O'Brien decides that he wanted to start his own consulting business. So he starts to do that while he's still working at Rippling. And again, he reaches out to the CEO at Deel to just offer his services and basically say, hey, like now I have a consulting business. If you're interested, like I can assist with any projects.
And are they competitors?
So Rippling and Deel are competitors. So this I still feel is like a little shady because because even though he's starting his own consulting business, he still works at Rippling and is reaching out to a competitor to do services for him. So even right off the bat, that's a little
it's
probably not a good idea.
To consult for a competitor of your job.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, exactly. So so this is all the kind of like communication that they start having, which just shows like how the conversations kind of began between the two of them, which I was really confused like in the beginning because I'm like, how did they poach this person? So this kind of like tees up how they started to have these conversations. So Alex Boazi tells him to get in touch with the COO, who is Dan Westgarth. And this is important. So keep that name in the back of your head. Dan Westgarth. So he gets in touch with the COO and they start to have conversations about potentially having a partnership and working with him as a contractor. So then near the end of September, O'Brien tells Boazi that he actually wants to leave Rippling so that he can start his consulting business full time. And this is when Boazi says that he has an idea. So he actually calls O'Brien, and O'Brien even says that he took this call while he was at work at Rippling in like a conference room. I'm like, that is gutsy. Like you're just like all over the place here. You're talking to a competitor while you're at work about your side business too. Yeah. So it's just like crossing a lot of lines already, but okay. So they start having this conversation through WhatsApp and LinkedIn. That's basically their main form of communication back and forth. And this is when Boazi says like that he wants him to potentially stay at Rippling and be a spy for him. Yeah, right? It's starting to get dicey here. Wow. It's turning up the heat. So he said that he even specifically remembered Boazi mentioning like James Bond. So like you can tell it's like very like
007. He wants you to be like...
Yeah, he's setting the scene essentially.
Okay.
And then they said right off the bat, like Boazi would give him a monetary reward if he did this and if he agreed. And so O'Brien said, let me think about it. But then this is also really funny because in the affidavit, he says he waited about 30 minutes and called him back. I'm like, 30 minutes to make a really important decision about being a spy. That's not a lot of time.
And we don't know how much the monetary
We do actually. Yes. So I know. So this was another big one because I'm like, gosh, how much could this be worth? Like doing this.
Your soul.
Yeah. You're selling your soul to these people. So
and freedom eventually, probably.
Exactly. So they agreed to pay him 5,000 euros a month, which would be around 6,000 US dollars a month. Yeah.
That's not enough.
It's not a lot. Yeah. But I mean, I guess if you think about it per month, and he was doing this for a couple of months before they all got caught, but that's not a lot
at all.
No.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Everybody's got a price and some price. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, like once O'Brien called Alex Boazzi back and said, okay, I think I'll do this for you, then Alex Boazzi gets his father on the phone, who is the CFO. Okay. So his name is Felipe. So they're on a three-way now, like talking about this whole situation. And this is when it really starts to get like in the weeds, because they're like, okay, we're going to do this. And now we have to try to figure out a way to like keep it a secret and not get caught. So, and the funny thing too is O'Brien even mentioned that he tried to have Alex Boazzi sign like a consulting contract, like so that he could account for where these extra funds were coming from. Yeah. But he was like, no way, I'm not doing that, which I mean, I don't blame him. Like, this is all illegal.
So he wasn't on the book at all.
No. And that's, and that's where it gets even crazier. So they decide, so I've never heard of this platform, but maybe most people have heard of this, but they move their conversations off of WhatsApp and LinkedIn to this new platform called Telegram. And I guess it's a much more secure platform. And then the conversations delete within 24 hours. So they switch everything to Telegram to have that conversation.
So scammers use Telegram. So if you're ever like applying for a job, that's never happened to you, where like, oh, I'd love to interview you, but we have to talk on Telegram. And then at that point, you just need to stop communications, because
that's a good tip.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know
that. It happens when, unfortunately, you apply for the wrong job.
Wow. Okay. Good tip. But yeah, that's where they moved. So it makes sense that scammers would also use this. And they're like, we're going to move to Telegram. So basically, they're like, all right, we got to start covering our tracks already, because now the line is drawn and we're like moving forward with this.
Okay, so recap. This is Deel.
This is Deel.
So Deel now goes into an off-the-book agreement with O'Brien to be a consultant.
Yeah.
And they have essentially convinced him to be 007 Bond of HR systems and be their spy.
Yep.
They have officially planted a spy inside Ripley.
Yep. And this is where it begins.
Oh my. Okay.
Yep. And so then like the conversations about the payment are pretty crazy too. And I thought they were pretty important, because it just adds in more people into this whole scheme that just gets so crazy. So the very first time that he gets paid, he said that the payment came over from somebody with the initials as A.B, like initials AB. And he had no idea who that was. Like nobody in their chain of communications was only Alec Boazzi and Felipe Boazzi, who is the dad. It was mainly just them two. And then there's like a random secret third person who nobody knows yet, but we'll get there. But anyway, so the payment comes over as AB. And it turned out that AB stood for Alba Basha, who is the wife of the COO, Dan Westgarth's wife.
So now there are four guilty parties.
Yes, exactly.
We have the CEO, the CFO, his dad, the COO, and the COO's wife. Who doesn't even work at Deel.
Not that we know of. And that's the other thing. I'm like, does she even know who she was sending this payment to and what it was for? Like, I wonder if she even knew.
She might be an off-the-book consultant, though.
Yeah, maybe she could be. But at the same time, I kind of feel like, man, like, I wonder if they just like didn't even tell her the details and were like, oh, we just need to transfer these funds. Like she could be like an unwilling participant.
She's smarter than that. She's got to be smarter than that. I don't know. Allegedly, allegedly, right? We don't know, but like they don't explain that in the affidavit. But I just felt like the way that it came up, it was just so like random. So I don't know about the lawsuit now. Like I don't have the documents for the actual lawsuit, so her name could be listed in there as well. I mean, that still doesn't mean that she didn't know. She could still be listed in the lawsuit. It's all alleged information. This is what he's saying, but it's still just so crazy that this random person's wife was the one who had to send the payment. Yeah. Well, it's not the random person.
Right.
He's like
it's
the COO. He's like number two. So the COO fully knows what's going on.
The COO knew what was going on for
sure. So most likely his wife does too.
Maybe.
I would hope that women are a little bit smarter than
I hope. Yeah. I mean, I really hope that she wasn't just sucked into this like and lied to, and then now she's a part of this whole thing. But yeah, it's just crazy. And so he got one first payment like this, and then the rest, it got a little shadier. They paid him in like crypto, which then he basically converted into like different accounts to get the cash. So
what is with this crypto stuff?
I don't know, but it's crazy. So okay, so now we also know that he's having these O'Brien's having these conversations with Alex and Felipe, but then there was a third person in this Telegram chat communication who he says he never knew who it was, but the person was called the Watchman. Yeah. That's really creepy. The Watchman.
So he could be a fourth person from Deel.
Yeah.
So the Watchman, maybe he's the COO. But we don't know.
We don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't know. He said he never really found out who that person was. That was just their name in the chat. And every once in a while, that person would communicate about the payments coming through.
Okay. So first of all, there is a system in place here. This allegedly probably was not the first time that they did it. They had someone called the Watchman. Yeah. What was he doing? Was he like the scrum master of it all?
I know. I have my suspicions based on everything I read that like either it was someone else a part of their like payroll and payment processing like finance team that they just didn't list and they never told O'Brien who this was, or it was a part of the legal team, because it gets crazy the further down. But it could be both. It could even just be so it gets crazy. So now we're going to actually get back into how all the information, like once it was actually being stolen, comes about and how it all gets started. So O'Brien was told by Alex to basically what to search for. He would tell him like search for certain terms and different things in Slack channel so that he could find out what Rippling was doing. And so O'Brien would tell him to search through Slack, through Salesforce, and through Google Drive. So we kind of already knew a lot of that from the beginning, but yeah. So O'Brien said that basically he would take pictures on his phone and like send them over. And then Alex actually changed it to saying like, can you take recordings so you can like scroll through the documents and different things to gather more information. So yeah, this whole time he was like, taking pictures of internal data and just sending it over, which is just like mind blowing to me. Like, I don't know, but
like they sell HR systems.
Yeah.
If you're that down bad for some top of funnel pipeline.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's insane.
Yeah. Well,
reassess.
Yeah. So, right. I know. I mean, it's just, and why are you that, well, to your same point, like, why are you that desperate that you have to like steal your competitors' information? I just don't.
Put that effort into marketing.
Yeah.
Get a good marketing ops person.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And go to market operations person and work on getting organic pipeline.
And if your product isn't good enough to sell on its own like that, then maybe that's
exactly
something's telling you something, right? I don't know.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So Alex then also gave O'Brien a list of customers that he said were looking to switch. So they must have been on like some kind of churn list, like they weren't happy. And he gave that list to O'Brien to bump up to see if they were doing research with Rippling, like if they were trying to switch. So that's even just more like crazy.
Like, what would you even do with that information? Like, if you have an unhappy customer, well, obviously they're looking at other solutions. Like, okay, you confirm that they're looking. What is the next step?
I know. How do you get them back? Like after that? I mean, I don't know. But yeah. And so O'Brien basically said that they were talking every single day. And I mean, talk about a toxic relationship. Like this is like him telling him every day, like what to look for and what to gather. And like at one point, O'Brien even says that he couldn't access certain things that most of the employees didn't have access to. So because of his role in like compliance and payroll, he had certain access to like reports that he could pull. And he was able to like pull these reports to gather insights from like customers in other countries and things to see like who their customers were. And so it just shows you kind of like the length that he had to go through to like do all of this stuff, which is just crazy because I'm like, man, I wonder if they do review cycles because It sounds like he's spending a lot of time just doing this kind of
and
stuff.
not doing his actual
and not
job.
doing his job. Like, I
Yeah.
would like to know what.
Yeah. What's your productivity looking like?
Yeah, it's just so crazy. So now this is where it starts to get to the honeypot scheme. So, and this is just so crazy, but O'Brien actually told Alex again that he wanted to leave Rippling. So this was around December of 2024, and Alex actually told him, like, can you just stay a couple more months? Like, we'll actually create a partnership with your consulting firm and like all this stuff. So he was like really just trying to get him to stay so that they could keep gathering information. Okay, so now we get to December of 2024, and O'Brien tells Alex again that he's looking to leave Rippling because he wants to do his consulting full time. And Alex actually tells him, like, you know, kind of begs him to like stay on longer. They said that they would create a better partnership with his consulting company so that, you know, he still has that on the side as well. And just like was really trying to like get him to not leave because he was getting so much insight from him. So around this time, this is when that Defectors channel was created, because now Rippling is starting to get suspicious because they were sort of like tipped off that something was going on. And so this is when Rippling starts to do all their research in their Slack channel and started to review like that somebody was consistently searching for the term deal and different words in their Slack channels and their systems. So now in February, this is when Alex tells O'Brien to search for the channel called Defectors. So O'Brien immediately does that. He searches for this channel, and within minutes, Alex sends him a message saying, never mind, don't do it. I think it's a trap.
Wait, okay. So the Defectors is that like a fake company that?
No, remember?
I can't remember.
So Rippling had already started to catch wind that somebody was being shady in their company. Mm-hmm. And so they ran all these reports through their Slack channel and started noticing that somebody was consistently searching for weird terms like deal and like certain customers and different things like that. So they created that honeypot scheme where they sent a lawsuit to Deel lawyers, and Defectors was in that lawsuit. Mm-hmm. But that channel never existed until the day they sent that lawsuit to Deel. So that was the day that Alex told O'Brien, search for this channel, Deel Defector. But that was the honeypot scheme. They wanted to see if they would catch him.
For it.
Yeah, who would search for it and go to that channel. And sure enough, that's when they caught O'Brien searching for that term that day. And so, but the funny thing is that Alex sent it to him saying, search for this channel. And then within minutes, he had already searched for it. And then within minutes, he said, never mind, I think it's a trap. Which is weird, and I would like to know why he somehow kind of got tipped off like, oh, it could be a trap. But the weird thing was O'Brien even said when he found that Slack channel, the only person that was in the channel was the CRO at Rippling. And so it was just like the perfect scheme because they fell right into it, and that's how they ultimately caught him.
Slack booby traps.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It was, definitely. It was. And so right after that happened, O'Brien was like, okay, now I'm really nervous because you also just said you think it was a trap and I already searched for it. So he kind of like started to get really scared, like crap, like I could be caught. And this whole time they had been trying to be very like secretive and delete things and everything. But the other crazy thing was he even said in the affidavit that even though he would send these videos, he would delete them from his phone right away. But a couple of them actually ended up in his like iCloud. Mm-hmm. They just like, even though he was deleting them, some of them didn't get deleted. So no matter how secretive and careful they weren't that careful. So yeah, so that's when the Deel Defector stuff started catching on, and Rippling knew. They just knew. They were like, we've got you. So it was pretty crazy. So then O'Brien was in contact with Deel's lawyers. So this is where the lawyers start to get involved, because now Rippling comes out and basically says, like, you guys planted a spy and we know it and we caught you. We have the data to show that this person like did this, and this Deel Defector channel was fake to begin with. We were only doing it to catch you. And so the Deel lawyers were like, no, they have nothing on you. Don't worry. It's okay. And they're trying to like keep him really calm. But O'Brien was like, I don't really know. So you could tell he was like kind of nervous, but he was like still going along with it because he's been working with Deel and their team. So now this is where it gets really crazy because so the legal team at Deel was like really pushing him to just like stick to the program. They kept saying like just continue with the story.
Even after this?
Yes, after he had gotten caught. So the solicitor or the like person came and serves him the papers at the office, and he even says himself, he's like, yeah, I went in because he actually thought he was accepting an award for a coworker. And so he goes in, but then this person serves him the papers and he goes, yeah, I pretty much panicked. And he says he tried to flush his phone. He tried to like crush it and everything. And then he just walked out and was like, I don't really know what to do. But then this is when he starts to, he's consistently communicating now with the Deel lawyers. They're telling them to keep up with this scheme, this program. Just don't say anything, they keep saying. But then at the same time, they offered to send his family to Dubai for like a vacation. They were like, you need to go on a vacation. And he basically says, I interpreted that as we need to flee because they're coming after me. So yeah, and I mean, if that's not shady enough, like you saying, don't worry, everything's fine, but we're going to send you somewhere else and your family. I mean, that's a little scary, I would say, Yeah. Yeah. So, so basically, like, they kept telling him just to keep quiet, that he'd be legally protected and like financially protected, and that they were going to do all these things for him to as long as he kept with the, the storyline. So now this is where the Russian sanction thing comes back into play. So Deel's lawyer told O'Brien to make up the statement that Rippling was just using these allegations to take the spotlight off of their supposed Russian sanctions payments, like allegation, out of the news or whatever. But he said he knew it was a lie, but he just went along with the narrative. So they actually planted that story because they said like, oh, we're going to change the narrative. So that Russian sanctions story was never even true.
Allegedly.
Yeah. Well, allegedly it was never true.
Yeah.
But he says that he knew it was false, but he kept saying it. And that's what he says in this affidavit. So this was a part of their storyline. Mm-hmm. And O'Brien said he just kept going along with it, even though he knew it was false. So now we're into March, and O'Brien continued this false narrative, but he also felt like the Deel's legal team was like pulling away from him. So now he's really starting to just like get depressed, and just like he's just like, I was at my lowest low. Like he just was, it was bad. Yeah. He's like, crap, he has a family.
They're probably trying to figure out how to make him the fall guy.
Right. And so that's probably what he felt too, because especially like initially you're talking to them every day, and then all of a sudden you're like not really talking to them, and they're probably trying to get their ducks in a row. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you feel like, crap, I'm the one that did all this stuff. Like what's going to happen? And yeah, I mean, I feel like you should probably think about that ahead of agreeing after 30 minutes. But like, that's besides the point. Okay. So now the Rippling's team starts to reach out to him to say, like, will you talk to us? Essentially, like, tell us what happened. Tell us your side of the story. And so O'Brien finally decides to get his own lawyer, which I think was...
He doesn't have his own lawyer right now?
No, he didn't have his own lawyer. So he finally decides to get his own lawyer, which was like the smartest thing. I mean, it's too bad he didn't do that earlier on, because clearly this Deel group is not like looking out for him, really. No. And so he finally gets his own lawyer, and then they tell him what he should do. But he decides to finally talk to Rippling's lawyers and tell them what happened, which is where this affidavit came from. So he said that he was just like so sick and depressed, but one of his friends had actually told him like, the truth will set you free. And I think he probably just got so low and down, and like at this point the money and everything that he thought is like, it's not worth it at this point anymore, because like I said, he's got a family, and he was like scared, he said, for his life, because basically the Deel executive team are very powerful people, and so he was worried. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I would be too, and you're coming up as a spy for corporation, so it's very scary. So ultimately it's I mean, I still don't know what's going to happen after the fact. Like that was pretty much like all of the information from the affidavit, but I really hope that there's more things that come out about when they actually start to go to court and like what the outcome will be. But yeah, I mean,
have official charges been pressed against O'Brien as well as the Deel CEO?
Well, I think that's probably what the whole lawsuit is. So I think the yes, like O'Brien got served, so he is a part of the lawsuit, but the lawsuit I think is in general against O'Brien, or is against Deals. Yeah. So because the whole 50-page lawsuit is basically saying like that your company created, all these issues for our company, but then O'Brien's named in it as somebody. So it's so crazy.
Wow, this is really true crime corporate edition.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It only takes 30 minutes and $6,000 for some people, I guess.
I know, and I was actually really shocked at that amount too. At first, I thought it was just $6,000, but then I was like, okay, $6,000 a month, and I guess I don't know how long they thought this was going to go on, but it went on for about 6 months. So in total, he got around $36,000 probably, but still, yeah, I don't know if that's worth it because I bet his legal fees have already surpassed that.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Do we know how much the revenue is? Like how much Deals or Rippling's revenue is?
That's a good question, but I don't know. I haven't looked into that.
I wonder if they're like on Apollo or anything.
I know. I bet they might be if they're private. We could probably look.
Yeah, I'd just be interested to see like what, the size and the success of their business is.
Yeah.
Because I had never heard of either of them before this case broke.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny. I didn't think I had heard of them either, but recently I saw the Deel logo like on LinkedIn.
I've been seeing it too.
Yeah, but maybe it's because I'm searching. But I feel like once I saw it, then I was like, oh, I have seen this before, but just probably like
no, I've been seeing it a lot when you scroll and then you see like recommended jobs.
Yeah.
I've been seeing Deel come up with like recommended jobs.
Yeah, that's what I've seen too. So I wonder, I don't know. I mean, maybe people aren't applying as much because they know about this lawsuit, but
who would apply there?
Yeah, I don't know.
Looks like we're showing a report of looks like over 300 million their revenue.
Oh, Rippling's at 300 million revenue. Okay.
That's what it says online. Let's see if we can get Deel. That's a lot.
That is a lot. Yeah. So they're obviously successful.
They're really successful. I'm curious what Deel is.
That's crazy. I wonder, what's really curious too is I wonder what they're telling their employees about this because it's so easy to find all this information online, like because TechCrunch especially is like really reporting on this. So it's really interesting.
So
wow.
Deel's recorded
500 million. That's crazy.
So why do you have to go through these links?
That is crazy.
If you are already so successful, why is this worth it? That's interesting.
But unless it's because how it's like maybe it's the pressure. Maybe Rippling kind of came out of nowhere and is putting so much pressure that they're growing so quickly. And it could be something like that where now Deel is kind of just getting in the hot seat and they're like, crap, maybe we were the leading platform and now we have a major competitor who's coming up and
sounds like Rippling's foot has been on their necks.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to be tuned in. I'm not going to be tuned in. You're going to be tuned in, and I can't wait until
until I find out more.
You find out more. Because I haven't seen any of this, so I don't.
Crazy.
Yeah. I guess it was on X. You saw it?
Yeah, well, no, I just looked up any updates on it.
Yeah.
And that's when I saw that the CEO called out the other CEO and
we'll see what happens.
Drama.
Probably trial coming soon.
I know, definitely.
Well, thanks for tuning into this episode. We'll keep you posted as soon as we find out more.
Yep.
Talk to you next time.
Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on all social media platforms.
Keep up with us and all of our hot takes on all things go-to-market operations. See you next time.